Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 16th day of July 2024. And it's time I want us to spend a few minutes to talk about the decision by the government to raise the road maintenance levy. And the president spoke about it yesterday, indicating that the government has done it in a manner that will ensure that the fuel prices are not affected. Just for your information, the petroleum prices reduced in the current month of consideration because the landed cost of a litre of petrol declined from 100 shillings to 92 shillings and a few cents. That would have been a benefit of over 7 shillings that should have been moved or been transferred to the consumer. But what happened is that the road maintenance levy was increased by 7 shillings, taking that away. And ultimately, the effective reduction was just about a shilling for a litre of super petrol. Now, when EPRA published that on Sunday, there were questions as to the authorization of that. And yesterday, the ministry released, though informally, a gazette notice. I just want to read it. Kenya Gazette Supplement number 132. It's a special issue published on the 10th of July. And it is the one that raises the schedule, revises the schedule, saying the premium petrol, just to summarize, would now be charged 25 shillings a litre for super petrol, and also diesel should attract the same. So the questions are that because this just came yesterday, which was on the 15th of July. Arnold, let me begin with you. If communication that ideally was published on the 10th of July, it was not available up until questions were being asked. So it came out on 15th of July after the fact. And the fact here is EPRA reviews the prices. If you look at the documentation of EPRA communicating to the public, it does not make any reference to a gazette notice. Are we dealing with a legitimate document here?
Well, I may not have all information to actually judge whether the document is legitimate or not. But what I understand is that given the circumstance that we are in, where we have got cabinet secretaries who've gone home, the decisions they had done, and remember the decision to send them home was actually done at the tail end of the week. Ordinarily, it was on 11th. Ordinarily, the gazette notice is issued on Thursdays. And it normally becomes available. The usual issue is normally on Thursdays and comes out on Fridays, actually for the rest of us to buy a copy. In the days of old, and sometimes we actually have had a special issue that comes out on Tuesday. But then it's done differently depending on situation. Like if there was something happening on Wednesday, on a Monday, or even on a Sunday, that then sometimes you will actually find a special gazette notice actually coming out. So there's the flexibility. The traditional one is normally done on a Thursday. Yeah. But then sometimes we used to have a special one done on Tuesdays. Still, we have circumstances, for example, where there is a decision that is coming out, you will find special ones. Like, for example, when you have got a holiday being gazetted, some of them are not predictable. For example, the Islamic holidays are not as fixed on dates as the Christian ones. Of course, some of the Christian ones, like Easter, for example, also a little bit of shifts. So that also varies. But the traditional gazette notice, the bigger one that all of us go out to buy, the Kenya Gazette, comes out on Thursdays. So
based on that, because this special issue, the date on it is 10th. Yes. 10th of July, which was on Wednesday. Yeah. On Thursday, the president dismissed his cabinet. But that is the day, ideally, the Gazette should have come out. Why wasn't the 10th of July decision in that Gazette?
What some of you probably have not asked is that there have been a number of Gazette notices. You can actually realize that a lot of decisions were already in the pipeline. By the fact that the ministers were asked out on 11th doesn't mean that the decisions that they had already transitioned in the channel already now stands suspended. Everything they had done before stands in law. We actually are going to see decisions even in this week's edition of Gazette, Kenya Gazette, where you're going to actually see ministers' decisions in it. They were in the channel, so you don't stop them. That's what I'm saying. Given the circumstance, we still are going to see a little bit of that this week because there are already decisions that have already been channeled, cleared by the Office of the Attorney General and transmitted directly to government printer. So the government printer has already been seized of that particular communication. They don't pull back because the person who actually rather sent them to it has been sent home. So still in this week, we are going to see that. And so that then we don't have this fog running around those decisions, it's important to understand.
If it is a special issue, when does it come out?
I said there are normally two traditional ones.
Yeah.
Thursdays, and sometimes there used to be on Tuesdays. But then I've told you, depending on circumstances, I think this was actually rushed through if it should actually have come out later.
Because if you're gazetting, let's assume that Friday this week will be a public holiday.
Yes.
The Interior Minister can gazette it on Thursday afternoon,
yes,
or even Wednesday earliest. And that becomes. So this one was issued on 10th of July, but it's becoming public on 15th of July. Isn't there a problem there?
Definitely. That's why we actually are discussing it. If it wasn't a problem, if it didn't look like it's a problem, and I'm just trying to explain that seeing that cabinet secretaries were sent home on 11th, there is a ton of decisions that were actually in the pipeline. And I've told you that even in this week's Kenya Gazette, you actually are going to see places where there are decisions, of course, underneath where the cabinet secretaries have signed.
Okay.
So that should not then really raise issues because what the decision by the president did not factor in or shouldn't actually be forced to look into that now, before I fire all of you, I want all the decisions that you actually have done either vetted and approved and made public before you exit office. Normally, a lot of the decisions you've made keep on going out, and you're going to see a lot of those documentations going out.
Okay, that's fine. So, Senator, the former cabinet secretary for transport, roads and transport, spoke about this matter on the 8th, which was on Monday. And he said that we have listened to Kenyans. They are saying they do not want the road maintenance levy increased. They do not want the fuel prices increased. And you're going to consult with the rest of the government to make a decision. That was on 8th. Nothing happened on 9th. But now, apparently on 10th, there was a publication.
Two issues I'll help you very quickly, Sami.
Yeah.
And I want my brother to accompany me in my argument. The explanation is giving, even the interrogation you are giving, the discussion on terms of whether this decision was gazetted at what time. For me, I don't look at that. What I look at, why was somebody trying to legalize RMLF? The purpose is that it will be the quickest way on how you can raise money. Right now, I'm sure you're aware, Sami, that there is no money for disbursement to the county governments. If you look at the headlines on, I think, 3 of the newspapers today, all of them are saying, please don't make devolution fail. Number 2, what is important and what I believe that we should be looking at, Sami, is that finance bill which the president said he did not approve of. What is the relationship between that finance bill and this approval using this Gazette notice? So to me, the argument whether the minister made the application and then the government printer printed it on which day, unless it has a time period, which is a statute, which says it should not be released between this period, I think that can be allowed in that it looks like, again, and this is the things which my brothers in this government, which I really feel sad for. Some of you remember I used to come here and laugh and say, you people are messing, you're messing, please, don't make us laugh at you. Now we laughed at them, and then now we have found this thing has gone crazy. The truth is, you don't believe, you could never believe what Murkomen could say. Neither could you believe what the president would say. And these are the challenges that we're having now. That the president, as we speak right now, look at what has happened in terms of what we've done with the road maintenance levy funds. Sami, in other countries, somebody, all right, from the president, even the press secretary, can say there is a decision to do this. The reason why we want to do this is because of this. like right now, they can argue and say we do not have enough revenues coming in because we did not implement the finance bill. As a result of that, the president has made a decision, even when we are having these challenges, for us to raise this revenue, we are doing this. I don't think any Kenyan would bother to ask the president. Why? Because they're used to being taxed anyway, and they are not crying about it anymore. But now, when you find that this thing is being done in a very funny way, there is no transparency in it. And you see, Sammy, one of the things that this young generation are talking about is open government. Mm-hmm. That if we continue running government as if it's a place where we make deals or where we go and lie to our people, the confidence of our government goes down. The trust in leadership goes down. And right now, the public does not want to be told anything that is not true. Whether it is these murders at Kware, whether it is about the fuel issue that we are having, whether it is the normal police misbehavior, or whether it is the behavior of the people who have just been fired by the government. Right now, the president has to have a character that must be beyond Caesar's. You see, Sammy, these are the challenges of our country today, that you, as a journalist, are looking at a document and you are wondering, where is this coming from? Me, as a senator who actually sits in the budget committee, know nothing about it. The only thing I know is that if you use the RMLF and go to 202, you can, 212, you can actually continue spending the money as you wait to reallocate as you move on.
Even though I thought RMLF is actually, the road maintenance levy is actually ring-fenced. It cannot be used on road projects.
It actually, the way it is, it's supposed to be taken. The county governments were allocated during this past finance bill. That's why I said, I don't know what happened after that. Maybe in the past finance bill, there was something they did there. So this is the opacity and the way it is kept as a secret. And these are the things I think as William Ruto is trying to move ahead, as he's trying to configure what he's going to do, he really has to try and make Kenyans believe him.
Okay. Canon, what are your thoughts? Because the confusing messages between Kenyans have said they don't want it, then the actions follow, and very quickly, even the president is available to offer an explanation of what they have done. What is your take?
Well, I think the first thing first is that we have agreed that we do have a trust deficit. And I think our call on this government is to build up the trust that they have lost in the 2 years they have been in office. And therefore, when government says something, people are not trusting what they have said. Because the Minister for Transport, who is quite a clear-speaking person, said the government will not increase the fuel levy. It's on record. A few days later, we see a Gazette notice increasing it. So who are you going to trust? And then the president speaks about the increase. So there is a lot of information and communication that is not being done right by the state. The state can increase, but there's a due process of how that can be done. We don't feel that the due process has been followed. And then when it comes to increasing taxes, when we have just had an uproar about increase of taxes generally, right, under the finance bill, then you are basically trying to put salt into an injury. And I think there's a sense in which the state seems to be provoking the public to action, to reaction. And that's not how a government is run. I think the people of Kenya expect that the government is going to do more. Then the other thing that we are not even discussing is what is the implication of this to the common person. We are going to see an increase in cost of living. Bread is going to go high, transport is going to go high, and this is the outcry that the Kenyans are having and say, reduce the burden. Now, the government is increasing the burden without necessarily engaging the people. And then also we have the principle that no taxation without representation. Why is Parliament in this? Why is the state increasing taxes through bureaucrats and gazette notices, Ruto and others, without us seeing that our representative in the legislature have given an okay. He is a senator, he is saying he doesn't know. And I don't know whether the members of the National Assembly have okayed this kind of a thing. We know they are on recess. These are some of the questions that Kenyans are having, and it is feeding into the distrust that people have in the state.
And Dr. Koimburi, if you look at the tabulation of fuel prices as provided by EPRA, landed cost at 92 shillings, but at the pump you pay 188 shillings. That's more than double the price that the fuel got here. And the taxes now are at 82 shillings 74 cents. That is 88% of the landed cost. I mean, it's never been that high. Of course, now the other charges, you're including the oil marketing company's margins. What does this do? Because in future, there's a possibility, because the prices of fuel globally move in a cycle. So there's a possibility they may go up. And already the road maintenance levy has been raised to 25 shillings. Never mind the promise that they were not going to increase it because they're considering the prices at the global stage. What does that do looking ahead?
Yeah, in that regard, from the private sector, we see it in two ways. First of all, we see the negative impact of this RML being increased, the road maintenance levy, in that it will make the cost of doing business, obviously, it will escalate. And remember, the private sector is looking into ways they can be able to reduce the cost or to reduce the burden of cost to the consumer, to the end person. So in this regard, we have the Petroleum Outlet Association of Kenya, which is part of the private sector, and they have issued a statement of which they will seek avenues to see how best these levies can be reduced, and also reimbursement can be done for those who will actually have suffered the cost at the pump. So in that regard is that we are seeing the cost of business moving forward will be expensive, but at the same time, we are looking at what is the government intending to do with this money. We are seeing that they are targeting to raise 115 billion by next year, June, so that they can be able to increase the road networks by as much as 230,000 kilometers. What will these roads mean for the private sector? We need to remember that across the value chain, the private sectors are involved in the value chain in terms of transportation. And one of the main things that has made the cost of production very expensive is transportation. And when the road networks are not that sufficient, it even leads to products not reaching the market at the right time. It leads to products reaching to the market spoiled, so that it makes the value of the commodities obviously lower. So when you look at the goodwill of this levy, is that it will have a positive impact for the private sector. But at the same time, it has a counter effect, because at the same time, it will cause the business environment and the cost of doing business expensive. Let's take cognizance of our neighbors within the East African. So as much as we are doing all these things, we need to take cognizance of our neighbors. What is Uganda doing? What is Tanzania doing? What is Rwanda doing? Because anything that we are doing will have a ripple effect. And if we don't nip this at the bud, we'll end up having people moving their businesses from Kenya and investors investing in our neighbors. So at the moment, we are looking into how we can become competitive Africa-wise. So all these things, I believe that the private sector is open to engagements, of which we have been. We did submit our memorandum to the National Assembly Finance and National Planning Committee at a certain time. And we do believe that dialogue is what we are calling for. And as Reverend Kinyanjui said, is that we need representation. So as much as these levies are being increased, we need key players who will be affected directly to be at the sitting table. We need the politicians, we need all these people, we need the community, we need the media, every person to be at the table and say, yes, we are seeing the positive impact, but the Kenyans are feeling oppressed that these levies are increasing, they're not seeing where they are going. So it boils down to, let's create institutions that will bring that we call confidence to the people, because when you compare to the developed nations, they have levies which are way higher than these ones. But why is it that people don't complain? It's because they see delivery, or they see where the money is going to. Okay. So as long as the government creates avenues where the money is going to, then people have no reason to complain.
Sam, kindly allow me to just say two things.
Yep.
Number one, a cabinet docket is quite heavy on policy. And in ordinary situations where there is a reshuffle or there is a handover, the traditional handover, cabinet secretaries, individuals in those particular offices are allowed time to actually clear the desk and prepare a handover file. We all understand the situation under which the current lot left office. I don't think they had sufficient time to actually clear their desks and communicate. So we have not had an opportunity to look at the handover files they did. And even if they had handover files, whom have they actually given to? Did they send it to the secretary, to the cabinet? Will they be showing up in the office to do a handover? So a little bit of that miscommunication could be out there given the circumstance. The second thing is this, that of course the 39% increment on the road maintenance levy was supposed to up the 80 billion shillings that currently that particular levy collects, because the road networks have actually expanded from about 166,000 kilometers from 2016 to now about 239,000 kilometers, and that it wasn't sufficient, and that we had put up roads, and it was important that the roads, the fear was that they would actually fall into ruin. So there's that particular bit. But that second point I'm actually raising is this, that in exercising our rights, we've gone to the street, a number of decisions have been taken. Those decisions have got operational, sometimes strategic, and even tactical challenges that come with it. For example, we do not have a finance bill in place, or rather finance act in place. Whatever we have are short measures to actually ensure that there is continuity of government. But substantively, it means that quite a number of things will have to be done.
If you don't have a finance act, what are you saying?
I'm saying that you know the measures the president took. They are all public. All of us know. Yeah. We've got an appropriations act signed. We have gone back to rework the finance bill that we actually rejected. So as we move forward, everything else, and Parliament has not went into recession. They'll be reconvening soon. So there's a number of work to be done. As we move towards that,
are you saying without finance bill 2024?
No, that's not what I said, Sam.
No.
Allow me to execute that.
You don't know what I'm asking. Can I just ask the question?
No, I will.
Are you saying that without finance bill 2024, we're not able to collect revenue?
That's not the truth. That's not what I'm saying.
So what is the big issue about finance bill 2024?
I am saying that given the circumstances we are operating in, we will have these small gaps, operational gaps at this particular level where, for example, Mheshimiwa has just told you here, and you cannot doubt a member of parliament when he tells you that we have got a problem with the liquidity. So, as we try to work out, and he said...
So what is the problem? What has caused the challenges?
I was trying to explain why some of these decisions look like they've not been thought through. Because one of the challenges you're going to actually, this particular decision will be met with, that particular gazette notice will be met with, is that people are going to talk about public participation. And I can tell you that if it goes to court, it will definitely have a problem.
I can help him, Sammy.
Sorry, before you help him, Arnold, tell me, what is causing the liquidity challenges?
Of course, we have had a challenge in the last 3-4 weeks. You've seen the demonstrations. Business has not been optimal. You do not expect, and by the every time, this is actually a standard statistic that you can actually run from elsewhere, that every time there has been a shakedown of this nature, you lose at least 1%, initially 1% of the GDP. Businesses are not working optimally. So government has not been collecting money like it will collect.
So
at any
what effect?
So to the point that if you are not collecting, you do not have money. That is straight. It's actually a
cause and effect issue. So how much money have we not collected?
I might not be able to quantify, but some you know that like today, our children are not in school. You know today, a lot of businesses are closed. That has been the practice for the last 1 month or so. So, whereas we do not have the numbers.
Just hold on. Yeah. The year 2023-2024, Kenya Revenue Authority collected 2.4 trillion shillings.
But we fell short by 300 billion. So remember, we still have got a deficit.
Just hold on, Arnold. Yeah. In the same year, there were demonstrations in March and in July.
There was no assault on Parliament.
I'm saying there were demonstrations in March 2023, and there were demonstrations in July 2023 as well.
Sam, you cannot compare demonstrations.
Sammy.
You can't.
Businesses were closed.
They were closed, but we were able to quantify. At the end of this, and this is an ongoing process.
So you're telling me the reason why counties do not have resources is because there are demonstrations?
Sam, when we talk about liquidity, I have worked on a board before. Now I work for a political party, but I have been in public service before. And I'll tell you this. The exchequer ordinarily in practice, will show up at least fortnightly. So that there's a little bit of liquid. There's never money available. KRA has to collect, send it to central bank, and then they try balance out. I'm just telling you that if you have a sustained assault on the economy as has been in the last 4 to 6 weeks, you cannot be liquid, because even businesses are not liquid.
I wish you could quantify that. I'll give you time to find the answer.
I wanted to help my brother Arnold. He's really struggling to explain very simple things. If you go to page 8, by the way, from Kan's advice on the Daily Nation today, the issue on what you're talking about, the gazettement, is actually, there's a very good piece by Jonathan Mutua and Edwin Mutai. They say Parliament passed. Are you with me, Sami?
Yep, carry on.
The National Assembly approved the report on the Finance and National Planning Committee that recommended an increase of the levy under Section 3 of the Road Maintenance Levy Fund. That was before Parliament was invaded. This was being done simultaneously, Sami?
Yep.
Simultaneously as we were trying to pass that finance bill.
Right.
At the same time, it is exactly the same time that this was being passed, which means whether, in fact, even if the finance bill had passed, this would still be an option left for the president, where he was going to increase how much money he was going to collect from there.
It was a recommendation, and it was not to be implemented in the finance bill.
Additionally, the committee observes that the levy has not been varied since 2017, despite the increase in petroleum and prices per litre in Kenya over the years and increased cost of road maintenance repair. This was a decision. The anger that you see that members of parliament are having, and let me tell you, Sami, why the RMLF is where they were invading. This is where loot is shared. Sami, I want Kenyans to listen to me today. Money for roads is where money is stolen from. There are deals which were stricken. People had agreed how they are going to share this money. This is the money that members of parliament are added under CDF. That is why we are saying CDF must be removed and centered at the county governments. That is where the money that goes to Kera and Kura is shared. Sami, and this money is why we are going to the fund, which is RMLF. Are you with me? So where we are looking at this, look at the amount of money that this percentage was going to raise. 116 billion shillings, isn't it? That is the deficit that the finance bill was trying to cure. So essentially, the finance bill has been dumped, but at the same time, the presidency decided they are going to use the RMLF to raise the same money that the finance bill was actually getting rid of. So the withdrawal of the finance bill is ineffective. In other words, what the president did is useless.
Okay, I remember, just a moment, I remember the Committee on Finance and Planning, in their report, they had made a recommendation that the road maintenance levy should be revised by 7 shillings.
Thank you.
But it was never in the amendments, in the list of amendments to make sure that it is now in the finance bill itself, because it was going to take a different process, which is what Kipchumba Murkomen, former CS, was pursuing through public participation, and eventually said that Kenyans have said they do not want the prices of fuel hiked. And you're saying that you're going to reorganize and look for money without affecting the price of fuel. And that is why what we've been discussing is about the process that has been followed. But I think we'll have to wait.
Lastly, Sami, I want to ask you, and I want to ask my brother here, Arnold. Last year we had money for roads. Sami, I want somebody to show me a tarmac road which has been finished by 20 kilometers. And yet you check how much money we spent on roads? Close to 115 billion shillings. So this is the money to be eaten. So my argument is, unless we stop these things, if you see, there's already a scandal about NTSA, there's already a scandal about how our airport was already being leased to some Indian company. even when we are having a crisis with agencies, even when people are asking for sanity, this nonsense is still going on in front of our own very eyes.
I hear you, Senator. And I have to
that is the frustration I'm having. That is why I am saying, if Sami today you tell me that we need to go and form a coalition government, what happens if you find that there are scandals coming in which were set up?
We'll get to that topic shortly.
5 years ago.
Some on these.
In closing, because you need to.
Okay. Let me just say this quickly. That first of all, Senator here is not correct to say that even by withdrawing the finance bill, we are still achieving the same impact. So the comparison of the two, that you see, when people went to the streets, this was not part and parcel of the issues. It was even in the bill at that particular point, right?
Kenyan money is Kenyan money.
No, let me just finish. I'm actually talking about the issues, because when people went to the street, this was not yet mature at the point where we are referring. So you cannot conflate the two. Secondly, allow me to tell Mheshimiwa this. Mheshimiwa, in moments like this, we honestly need you elected people to demonstrate leadership. And the simple reason is this, that the president and the deputy president, we have gone to the brink. As much as a country, we've always gone to the brink and pulled back. There is no guarantee that if we continue doing this, there is always a starting point. So,
who has taken us to the brink?
So,
you are lecturing me.
Partly,
you are lecturing me.
Partly he does.
Resources
partly
are being
you
stolen.
have done.
This is how you guys
are doing populist statements continuously
and
not offering leadership. He has asked you 20 kilometers. Sam, between you and him, who is doing oversight? Who should be telling people the answers? He has not given any answer. He is here to actually give populists. Those are populists. Show them the thieves. Populist positions do not help. We need to move on. This is populist. It does not help the nation.
Senator Nano,
he is asking you about 20 kilometers, yet he's doing oversight. Sam, should you be asking him or should he be asking you? This is noise. This is populist. And populism does not help a nation. He needs to give us answers. When he's asking you a question that should be asking him. No, noises and populism does not help a nation.
We don't want to join.
This is populism. This is populism. You must make progress. You are elected. Give us a solution. Let us move forward. You are supposed to give us the way forward. He cannot be asking you questions. You should be asking him. This noise cannot help us a nation.
All right, Senator.
No. Sam, we cannot be bullied by noises. We can't be bullied by noises.
You have to keep quiet.
These guys have been
fine, but tell him. No. I allowed him to speak.
Nobody can hear.
He has not allowed.
When both of you
accept you made mistakes, then
tell him to stop bullying me.
Just to listen to what the president said yesterday about the demonstrations that have been going on who exactly